This day in sports history. It's June 22nd, and on this day in 1986, it was not one, but two of the most iconic World Cup goals ever scored in the same game by the same player. So this first goal is one that lives in soccer lore, but it should not have counted then and would easily be overturned with the technology of today. It was Maradona's Hand of God goal. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The World Cup was hosted by Mexico that year, and this was a quarterfinal match between Argentina and England. In the 51st minute of a scoreless game, Argentina put together an attack, and here's how it sounded that day.
Maradona just walked away from Hoddle then. Maradona, Maradona! They're appealing for offside. The ball came back off the foot of Steve Hodge, and Maradona gives Argentina the lead. The England players protesting to the referee. Or was it a use of the hand that England are complaining about?
So, to provide a little bit more description for that, Maradona sent a pass to his teammate Jorge Valdano at the top of the 18, who misplayed it a bit, and it popped up for England's Steve Hodge, who sent it in an arc towards his goalkeeper, Peter Shilton. Maradona continued his run, and because of the touch by Hodge, it negated any offside call. And Maradona jumped with Shilton in an apparent attempt at a header, at least that's what it looked like, but he instead pushed it into the goal with his hand. England immediately pleaded for handball, but referee Ali Benassour did not see it, nor did the assistant. What came to be known later as the Hand of God goal stood. Of course, in today's era of VAR, that goal would have been overturned in a matter of seconds, and the game would have remained scoreless. Post-game and for a couple of decades after, Maradona insisted it was a legitimate header goal. But yeah, in 2006, after photo evidence showed his hand redirecting the ball into the goal, he finally admitted that he had used his hand. Now, the second iconic goal happened just 3 minutes later, and this one was legit.
That ball was played through to him, but here's Maradona again. He has Burchaga to his left and Valdano to his left. He won't need any of them. Oh, you have to say that's magnificent. There is no debate about that goal. That was just pure football genius.
11 touches in 11 seconds. Maradona covered 73 yards in his solo run to score that goal. So that one came to be known as the goal of the century. England scored a goal in the 81st minute, but Argentina advanced to the semis with the 2-1 win on two incredible Maradona goals. Argentina went on to beat Belgium in the semis and then top West Germany to win their second World Cup. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 1938, it was a heavyweight boxing title fight, and yet it was so much more than that. This was American Joe Louis versus German Max Schmeling, the rematch. The two had met a little over 2 years prior on June 19, 1936. Now, in that fight, the veteran Schmeling had beaten the previously unbeaten and favored 22-year-old Louis with a 12th round knockout. The poet Langston Hughes had been ringside at that fight and lamented seeing people crying on the streets of New York when they learned Joe Louis had been knocked down. In Germany, it had been a euphoric celebration of Adolf Hitler's Aryan superiority as the white German had defeated the black American. Schmeling had been flown back to Germany aboard the Hindenburg and feted by Hitler and the Nazi Party. Joe Louis went back to work. On this day in 1937, Louis beat the Cinderella Man James J. Braddock to become the heavyweight champion of the world, and that win put Louis back on a collision course with Schmeling exactly 1 year later. Louis said he would never consider himself the champion unless and until he beat Schmeling. 2 years earlier, rumors swirled that Lewis had not prepared hard enough, hadn't trained sufficiently for the first bout with Schmeling. With 2 more years of maturity and experience along with the memory of the beating he had taken in the first fight, Lewis was determined not to take anything for granted. He entered the ring that night at a sold-out Yankee Stadium in the best condition in his life and with a winning strategy. He knew Schmeling liked to feel out his opponent in the early rounds, figure out their strategy, and then take advantage. Lewis vowed not to give him a chance to figure out anything. When the bell rang for round 1, Schmeling was dancing, Lewis was charging. He threw punches immediately and relentlessly. Left, right, uppercut, jab, body blows, headshots, repeat, and not only was he throwing them, his punches were connecting and causing damage. In one barrage, he broke a vertebrae in Schmeling's back. Lewis put him on the mat, Schmeling got back up, Lewis pounded him with a vicious combination again, Schmeling went back down again. He got to his feet again only to be met with more of the same.
Right to the body, a left hook to the jaw, and Schmeling is down. The count is 5, 6, 7, 8. The men are in the ring. The fight is over on a technical knockout. Max Schmeling is beaten in 1 round.
The time, 2 minutes, 4 seconds, first round. Referee stops it. The winner and still champion, Joe Lewis.
A first-round knockout and a message sent across the Atlantic. Schmeling spent the next 10 days in a New York City hospital. After he returned to Germany, he spent an additional 6 weeks recovering in a hospital there. Joe Lewis became a hero, not just to Black Americans, he was already that, but to all Americans. For a brief moment, he transcended racial bigotry in this country to unify all around the growing concern in Europe. Lewis paused his boxing career in 1942 to enlist in the Army. When he died in 1981, Ronald Reagan requested Joe Lewis be buried at Arlington National Cemetery and honored as a true American hero. On this day in 1994, it was a World Cup win for the ages for the U.S., but a loss of more than just a game for Colombia. The Colombians were heavily favored in this game. Soccer is huge in the U.S. now, but back in the mid-90s, not many Americans cared much about soccer, despite the fact that the U.S. was hosting the World Cup for the first time. In Colombia, soccer was life, a religion, a source of pride when their team won, a boiling cauldron of hate when they lost. The pivotal moment came in the 35th minute, when John Harkes crossed a ball into the 18 to a streaking Ernie Stewart.
With Caligiuri overlapping on the far side, sends it inside, it's an own goal! The USA gets the score. Escobar on the own goal, and the United States leads Colombia 1-0.
So Colombian defender Andres Escobar slid to get a foot on the pass to redirect it away from Stewart, but instead he redirected it into his own goal. The Americans made it 2-0 in the 52nd minute when Tab Ramos played a beautiful through ball to Stewart, who chipped it over the goalkeeper. The Colombians scored late to make it a 2-1 final, but the U.S. advanced to the knockout round. The Colombians were headed home disappointed. But unfortunately, that's not where this story ends. Escobar was obviously dejected after his own goal and the loss to the U.S. He was heckled and jeered when he returned to Colombia. On July 2nd, he was murdered in Medellin by a soccer hooligan. The man and a gang of 3 shot Escobar 6 times, screaming goal after each shot was fired. And hitting the links now, several great stories to shrink wrap into today's edition. On this day in 2009, it was Lucas Glover sinking a 3-foot par putt to win the U.S. Open by 2 shots at Bethpage Black. It was only his second win on the PGA Tour at that point, and he had to play a qualifier just to make the field. This was a weather-marred U.S. Open. No round started and finished on the same day in a true slogfest. On this day in 2014, Michelle Wie won the U.S. Women's Open at Pinehurst. She shot a final round 70 to win by 2 shots, but nearly coughed it up on the 16th hole after making double bogey. She put the wheels back on the bus, though, birdieing 17 and parring 18 to win her first and still only major of her career. Also on this day in 2014, on the PGA Tour that week, Kevin Streelman set a PGA record by birdieing 7 consecutive holes to win the Travelers Championships. But not just any 7, he birdied the final 7 holes to charge up the leaderboard and beat KJ Choi and Sergio Garcia by a shot. He shot 28 and 1 putt every green on the closing 9. His 7 straight birdies en route to a win topped the record set by Mike Suchak back in 1956. Now, I say en route to a win because the PGA Tour record for consecutive birdies made is 9 by Mark Calcavecchia as part of his second round in the 2009 Canadian Open, but he did not hoist the winner's trophy on Sunday. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Try to wrap your head around this strange fact. Alaska is the northernmost, the westernmost, and the easternmost part of the U.S.
Say, what would you talking about, Willis?
What did you say? What?
How is that possible, you may be asking? Well, there's a little island that's part of the Aleutian chain that sits 10 miles to the west of the prime meridian, which separates the western hemisphere from the eastern hemisphere, making Alaska also the easternmost part of the U.S. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.